The Galactic Prosperity Council had made the same offer to 300 civilizations across the spiral arm. The terms were simple, non-negotiable, and had never been refused. Submit to Council authority. Contribute 30% of your planetary resources except a governing body of Council overseers, and in return, receive protection, technology, and guaranteed peace. Ambassador Kethvar adjusted his bioluminescent scales as he materialized in the simple conference room aboard Earth's primary orbital station. The humans had insisted on neutral territory, curious, but ultimately irrelevant. The outcome would be the same as it always was. Ambassador, the human representative stood and extended her hand. Admiral Sarah Chen, according to his briefings. Mid-40s, competent military record, nothing exceptional. Thank you for coming. Kethvar regarded the outstretched appendage with mild distaste but touched it briefly. These mammals were obsessed with physical contact. Admiral Chen, I trust you've reviewed the Council's generous offer? We have. Chen gestured to the chairs around the table. 3 other humans sat waiting, an elderly man in civilian clothes, a younger woman in a scientific uniform, and another military officer with cybernetic implants gleaming at his temple. Excellent. Then you understand the benefits of joining our collective. 300 worlds cannot be wrong, Admiral. Peace, prosperity, advancement, all yours for the modest price of compliance. The elderly human, Dr. Marcus Webb, according to the files, leaned forward. Tell me, Ambassador, what happens to species that refuse your generous offer? Kethvar's scales rippled with amusement. In 8,000 years of Council expansion, Dr. Webb, no species has been so foolish. Why would any civilization choose struggle over prosperity? Humor me, Webb pressed. Theoretical species who refused would find themselves isolated. No trade, no technology transfer, no protection from the various hazards of this galaxy. Most theoretical species would reconsider within a generation. Those who didn't, Kethvar's scales darkened. Well, accidents happen, pirates, natural disasters, inexplicable system failures. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. I see. And how long do we have to consider your offer? Standard diplomatic courtesy allows 72 of your hours. More than sufficient. Most species accept immediately upon understanding the alternatives. The cyborg officer spoke for the first time, his voice carrying a slight electronic rasp. General Morrison, he introduced himself. I'm curious about your enforcement capabilities. How exactly does the Council ensure compliance from 300 worlds? Another amusing question. The Council fleet consists of 12,000 vessels, General. Our enforcement arm has never encountered meaningful resistance. Compliance is inevitable. Dr. Webb smiled, an expression Kethvar had learned to find disturbing on human faces. Ambassador, you mentioned 8,000 years of expansion. How many of those 300 civilizations were spacefaring when you first encountered them? Irrelevant information, Doctor. The Council brings all species to the same technological standard. Humor me again. Kethvar consulted his data pad. 47 species had achieved interstellar capability at first contact. The remainder were pre-industrial or early industrial. Your point? No point, just curious. Webb exchanged glances with Admiral Chen. One more question. Of those 47 spacefaring civilizations, how many had military fleets? 23. Maintained significant defensive forces. Again, I fail to see. What was the largest fleet among those 23 species? Kethvar's scales flickered with irritation. The Korthak hegemony maintained approximately 800 vessels. They saw reason quite quickly once they understood the odds. 800, Webb repeated. Interesting. Admiral Chen stood. Thank you, Ambassador. We'll need the full 72 hours to consider your offer. Of course, though I should mention, the Council has detected some unusual energy signatures from your system. Military buildups during negotiation periods are viewed unfavorably. General Morrison's cybernetic eye glowed softly. Those would be routine defensive exercises, Ambassador. Nothing more. 71 hours later, Kethvar received Admiral Chen's response aboard his flagship, the Dominion of Order, a 12-kilometer Leviathan that had reduced systems to slag with its mere presence. "Admiral Chen," he said as her image appeared on his communication array. "I trust you bring acceptance of the Council's generous terms." Chen smiled that disturbing human expression. "I'm afraid not, Ambassador. Earth formally declines Council membership." Kethvar's scales turned a deep amber, confusion mixed with anger. "Admiral, you cannot be serious. You've seen our records, our fleet size." "We have. Dr. Webb was particularly interested in your numbers." "Then you understand the futility of resistance." "Ambassador," Chen's smile widened, "let me share something about human history. We've never been very good at accepting ultimatums." Before Kethvar could respond, proximity alarms began shrieking throughout his ship. His tactical officer, a Varanti with excellent sensory capabilities, looked up from his console with what could only be described as horror. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system, hundreds of them, thousands." "Impossible. Our intelligence shows Earth possesses perhaps 50 primitive vessels. 16,843 vessels now decloaking, sir. And sir, they're not primitive." On the main display, space seemed to ripple and tear as Earth's hidden fleet materialized. Sleek predator ships emerged from nowhere, their hulls gleaming with technologies that made Council vessels look like museum pieces. Each ship bristled with weapons that registered completely unknown on Kethvar's sensors. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "You see, Ambassador, you made a critical assumption. You assumed that because you've been expanding for 8,000 years, you were the apex predators in this galaxy. This is impossible. Your scouts reported exactly what we wanted them to report. Tell me, in those 8,000 years, have you ever encountered a species that was actively hiding their capabilities?" Kethvar watched in growing horror as more human ships materialized, not just around his fleet, but around every Council vessel in known space if his communication channels were accurate. "You see, Ambassador, while the Council was busy collecting compliant civilizations, humanity was watching. Learning. We've known about you for 3 centuries. We've studied every species you've subjugated, every technology you've stolen, every tactic you've employed." "What? What do you want?" Kethvar's voice had lost all its earlier confidence. Chen's smile became something truly terrifying. "What we've always wanted, Ambassador. What every human wants when presented with bullies." Around Kethvar's ship, the human fleet began powering weapons that made his sensors scream in protest. "We want you to learn what happens when you threaten Earth." The last thing Kethvar saw was Admiral Chen leaning forward on his screen. "The Council wanted our compliance, Ambassador. What you're about to get is our complete attention, and I promise you, you won't enjoy having it." The communication cut out just as 16,000 human warships opened fire simultaneously across known space, and the 8,000-year reign of the Galactic Prosperity Council came to an abrupt and decisive end. In the aftermath, when the surviving Council species asked Earth's new administrators what would happen to them, Admiral Chen's response became legendary across the galaxy. "What happens now is very simple. You're going to learn what actual prosperity looks like without the compliance." And for the first time in 8 millennia, the galaxy truly prospered.